The Dallas Cowboys have yet to sign Mike Zimmer to a contract. What's the holdup? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we're going to be discussing Mike Zimmer, the almost Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, why it's taking so long for a deal to get done, some potential options if the deal does fall through, and how far away are the Dallas Cowboys from the Chiefs and the 49ers, who we saw play last night. But let's first start with some Zimmer news. So we did a show on Friday talking about Mike Zimmer because it was announced by several outlets that Mike Zimmer will be the next defensive coordinator to the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about our excitement level, and then Saturday passed, no deal, no official deal. Sunday passed, no official deal. We got some word that there's some contract holdups, and now it's Monday afternoon. Still nothing yet. So, Landon, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's some kind of sticking points in the contract deal. I mean, obviously, there's only so many elements that involved in these deals, so you would have to think it has to do something with money or length of time or responsibilities. But I can't imagine it's that third one. So it's either something in dispute with the amount of money, the payment schedule, something involving the money, or the length of time of the contract. As those are the two main sticking points when you're discussing a coaching contract for sure. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. I mean, this has all kind of been, sussed out through whispers and the fact that this deal isn't done yet, but we haven't really heard too much particulars about, what the actual sticking point is on this contract negotiation.
So I've got to believe it's the length of the deal, right? I mean, I think a lot of people around the league believe that Mike McCarthy could be a lame duck coach going into the 2024 season without a contract extension in the final year of his deal. If you're Mike Zimmer, you want to get a 3 or 4 year deal here, right? To at least give you as much guaranteed money as possible. And I've got to believe that's one part of it. I also got to believe that Zimmer probably wants to be paid as one of the highest paid defensive coordinators in the league. And he probably wants to get the same money that Dan Quinn's been getting over the last couple of years. So we don't know those numbers because they're not made public, but if you're Mike Zimmer, there's probably no reason to hold out for anything less, right?
I mean, obviously he was cool with holding out all of last season. I mean, he's made, quite a bit of money in the NFL and obviously wouldn't be hurting for a job if he decided that he didn't want to take this job. So, yeah, I mean, I think for him, it's like, he's been out of football already. He'd probably be glad to go back out for another year and spend time in Kentucky watching film at home, wait for the next coaching cycle to come around. And for the Cowboys, I tend to think that this is another situation where the Cowboys are too overzealous to announce something before it's done, and because they announce something like this, they put themselves in a bad leverage situation,
So how concerned are you that a deal won't get done here?
I don't know how concerned to be. That's the problem, is that we don't know any of the details of we don't know what the sticking point is. So it's hard to argue or debate how long the holdout is going to be because of that. But I imagine that, the Cowboys themselves are not going to be interested in dragging this on more than through this week. Right? I can't imagine.
I don't even think that. I mean, I would think by Wednesday, they're going to want to have a
deal
done.
I would imagine so. I mean, I think the deal gets done and it gets done soon. But I also think that if it doesn't get done soon in the next couple of days, Cowboys have got to move on, and I mean, again, part of the issue with them waiting as long as they did is that they don't have very much runway left, right? So they and again, this is a situation that was created by the Cowboys, right? They announced this before it was done. They dragged their feet, and now they've just pushed a whole bunch of leverage to Zimmer's agent side because they're the only people that are under the gun are the Cowboys. So, it's kind of not a great negotiating position to be in. But I ultimately think that Jerry is going to, just pay through the nose for it, and it'll be fine.
There's a lot of reasons why this needs to get done quick. For a few, like just the NFL Combine is 14 days away. Okay.
Yeah.
The start of free agency is a month away. On top of that, you need to build out a coaching staff on defense.
Yeah.
You just lost Auden Dirty to the Seahawks to be their defensive coordinator. You lost Joe Witt. You lost Dan Quinn. Like whoever is the new defensive coordinator is going to have to go out and start hiring people for those jobs. I mean, we're already past the All-Star games. Like we're getting into the point of the offseason where like it's time to start evaluating talent and free agency and the draft. Like you can't wait around forever to get this done.
Yeah, I mean, again, this again points to the reason that I was, complaining about the fact that this was taking so long before, is that there's still a lot of other stuff to do to kind of fill out your roster and fill out your coaching roster, before it becomes evaluation time, like serious evaluation time, right? Like, I mean, kind of, down to the home stretch. What you have to remember is that, we as kind of consumers of the draft, we have time all the way up until the draft to kind of get these reports and understand like who these players are. These guys need the lens. The scouts need the lens in which they are looking through to view these players before they can do it, right? Like they don't even know whose defense they're viewing these defenders through, the lens that they're viewing these defenders through, and they're evaluating these. So they're kind of getting just a general evaluation on these guys without having to match it to the specific scheme that they are going to be playing in. So this is the hour is definitely getting late, and the Cowboys need to move on this. And this is my concern is that Zimmer's holding them to a spot where they may have to make a bad decision in order to kind of get things done in a timely manner, which again just points to a really mismanaged timeline on this whole situation.
The Cowboys are the only team in the league with a coordinator opening going into the first day of kind of the offseason. It's kind of incredible. I'm hoping that we get some Zimmer news within the next 24 hours or so, because as you mentioned, the longer this drags out, I think the less confidence I have that Zimmer will become their next defensive coordinator. And if it's not Mike Zimmer, who could be their next defensive coordinator in 2024? We actually got some news during the show on that. We will discuss it next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's also demon time on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000. Demon and Goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at PrizePicks. Squares marked with the red demons or the green goblins give you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNFL and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can also now find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. All right, Landon, as we were recording this episode, we got this from Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show. He said, the Dallas Cowboys loved their interview with Rex Ryan. Mike Zimmer's deal is not done, and they've reached back out to Rex Ryan, gauging his interest of being the next defensive coordinator. What are your thoughts?
That Rex Ryan is going to be the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys in the 2024 season, and I'm not thrilled about it. That's basically my original thoughts. I don't know. That's frustrating. Again, shut up. Like, shut your mouth, Cowboys, and just negotiate. Don't talk to Adam Schefter. Don't go tell David Moore how you feel about Dak Prescott. Just be quiet and negotiate normally, because this helps nothing. No one cares other than you're pissing off the people that you're talking about. Like, yeah, this is dumb. I don't know why they continue to do this kind of thing. And
I wouldn't even be surprised if it was one of those things like Mike Zimmer saw the Tom Pelissero tweet on Friday and got annoyed that, like, hey, this deal's not done and you guys are already leaking it. Like, we can't have this stuff if I'm going to come be your defensive coordinator. And maybe it spooked him a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the agent was like, oh, that's nice that you've decided that this number that we're haggling over is the number that we're going to have. Guess what, jerks? It just went up $2 more million because you guys decided you could not wait to call Tom Pelissero and tell him that this deal was done. Like, there's no... I just would love for the Joneses to understand that there is zero advantage to negotiating or releasing negotiation information in the press. They have consistently gotten their butts kicked by the other negotiating side when they've used this tactic. I don't understand why they continually do this. It's really ruined a lot of really great situations that they could have walked into. But they continue to do it, and they think that they're being sly by kind of return volleying this Rex Ryan stuff, and ultimately that it's just them shooting themselves in the foot again. It's just so frustrating.
Well, and actually, Rex Ryan on ESPN on Sunday kind of gave us some of the information. Like, he was one like saying, "Hey, this deal's not done yet. I still want to be a candidate for this job. I think I am still a candidate." And he gave a passionate speech on why he thought he should be the defensive coordinator. He mentioned he thought this Cowboys team was really close. They needed to be a little bit tougher on the defensive side of the ball. And he said that he's had the opportunity to become a defensive coordinator multiple times over the last couple of years, but he's been waiting for the right situation. I just don't know if you're out of the NFL for 7 years, if you can come back in and have immediate success. I love a lot of what Rex Ryan has done. I think he is one of the most brilliant defensive minds that we've had over the last 20 or 30 years. But that's a long time off, Landon, if that's the direction the Cowboys decide to go.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't line up with any of their other team building timelines. It's like, let's get this guy who runs a completely different type of defense, and let's start the kind of 2 or 3 year period of installing his defense into this onto this team, and that lines up just absolutely terribly with the timeline that's happening on the other side of the ball with the quarterback and the head coach and everything else. Yeah, I mean, this is just like reactionary team building. It feels like it just feels like you're responding to what's happening on a day-to-day basis instead of having a cohesive long-term plan for where your team is heading, which is frustrating.
I'm curious to see what the reaction for Cowboy fans would be if the Zimmer deal falls through and it's Rex Ryan that's the fallback option. Like, would Cowboy fans view that as, oh, those are two similar coaches, it's not that big of a deal, or Cowboys can't even get the defensive coordinators they want anymore? Like, that's how bad this situation has gotten.
I mean, it should be that. Like, it should. I mean, what it likely will be I know who Rex Ryan is. He's on ESPN. He must be a good choice. That's what the actual reaction would be. What it should be is, hey, there's a reason Rex Ryan has been on ESPN for the last 7 years, and the Cowboys botched their first choice for a defensive coordinator so badly that they're having to go for the guy that is a television guy at this point. So look, I think Rex Ryan has had a lot of success, and he's a great defensive coordinator. He's proven that over and over again. It's definitely did a lot of incredible things with that Jets team, but you said it, like, he hasn't coached a defense in half a decade plus. And again, it's It'd be one thing if the Cowboys were so overwhelmed by Rex Ryan in the first place that he was their first candidate and that's who they chose and all of those good things. But no, they've screwed this situation up just in the last 2 days so badly that, now they're having to very slyly, no one's seeing through it, very slyly call Adam Schefter or whoever to go spin this to make it seem like, well, now Rex is a pretty good choice too. Like,
unless this is just Rex going to Schefter because they work at the
it could be that also
hey,
could
keep
be
my name out there being mentioned so I could potentially get another job down the road.
That could also be it as well. But I do know that no matter what, like, the Cowboys leaked to Tom Pelissero that Zimmer was the head coach, and he's not the head coach currently. So,
or defensive coordinator.
Yeah, defensive coordinator. He's not the defensive coordinator. So, accordingly, they definitely screwed that part up at some point. So,
all right, removing the Zimmer part of this and the sequence of events, if Rex Ryan becomes the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, like, what letter grade would you give it? Like C? Worse than that?
So removing the process part of
Correct.
it,
just strictly the hire.
Yeah, I mean, probably a C. I mean that's to be nice, probably because I have respect for what Rex Ryan has done in the league previous to this. But again, like, having Rex Ryan as your defensive coordinator in a vacuum without all the particular context, probably a B. But the fact is that, it's like the timeline mismanagement, the fact he hasn't coached in so many years, like, yeah, I mean, C is probably your starting position, and you're hoping it doesn't get worse from there.
Well, I was watching a video from Nate Tice from The Athletic talking about Rex Ryan as a potential candidate for the Cowboys. And he said a lot of what, like, Mike McDonald, who just got hired to be the Seahawks head coach, who was the defensive coordinator of the Ravens this year, a lot of what he's running is just basically stuff that Rex Ryan ran with the Jets and the Bills over the last decade. And he thinks that Ryan would be able to jump right back into this NFL and have immediate success. I hope that's the case. It just really does worry me when you've been out of the game for that long. We've seen several Hall of Fame coaches on offense and defense take time off and they get back in, and it's just not quite the same. I could talk myself into being optimistic about it, Landon, but there are some real concerns for me.
Well, look, I mean, I think generally speaking, the positive developments you get are when you have a formerly complicated defense, and then you switch to a kind of Quinn type defense, right? Where you play fast and there's not a lot of complications behind it. Play simple coverage, man coverage behind it, and you're attacking with 4, right? Because there's very little kind of extra, X's and O's to learn or checks to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, but with this situation, you're having to learn all this extra stuff. They don't have all of this extra time, especially now. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And again, like, the diminishing returns of how long this is going to take to kind of get in place. And here's the other thing too, is the brilliant part is that, is Rex Ryan going to take a 1-year deal, or is Rex Ryan also going to require a 3-year deal? And now you're beholden to Rex Ryan. And guess what? Mike McCarthy gets fired, and guess who's going to be your head coach temporary? Footboy himself. So I just don't think that this is like, this, it's all just reactionary. It's all just like, instead of like having a cohesive plan and executing it, they had that, they blow it all to hell in the public, with media and just the way they handle the situation. And then they kind of jump to the next disaster that they hope will work out in their favor.
A lot of encouraging words there for me.
I'm really super positive about this whole situation, as normal, I guess.
Yeah. Let's just hope that they figure out a way to get a deal done with Zimmer as quick as possible. All right, I want to talk about the Super Bowl just a little bit on how close or how far away are the Cowboys from the Chiefs and the Niners. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. What a game that was last night. It's absolutely phenomenal. But as usual, the commercial stole the show in my book. DoorDash went all out for game day, and DoorDash stuff from all the ads to one lucky winner, car, snacks, even tax software. Somehow they pulled it off. I'm a little bummed that I didn't win, but got to hand it to them. It was one heck of a delivery. DoorDash is the all-in-one app for your everyday needs, from restaurants, groceries, to flowers and gifts. So the next time you're running low on dinner ideas, pet supplies, or just time, you can get so much more than you realize delivered. If you're having a watch party, or like me, I have the bachelor parties now at my house. Now that football is over, we're watching Bachelor here at my house. Get all of your stuff that you need delivered with DoorDash. Football season might be over, but we're in the thick of basketball season, school year, winter. I can think of a million reasons why you want to order on DoorDash. Hop on the app and make your day a little easier. Get dinner for tonight, groceries for the week, or a consolation prize for your sad friends in San Francisco. All on DoorDash. DoorDash, your door to more. Head to the DoorDash app to get everything you need delivered. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. I was going to tell you, everydayers, we were going to have Luke Braun on the show to discuss Mike Zimmer's defense. Reached out to him this morning. We might not be doing that show. We'll have to wait and see. But if the Cowboys do make that announcement, Luke will be on the show later this week. I want to talk about really quickly just the Super Bowl. When you were watching that game last night, Landon, I know I was constantly comparing the Niners and the Chiefs to the Cowboys. How far away do you think the Cowboys are from what we saw last night?
It's tough, right? It's like you feel like it was interesting watching, these teams. We talk about all the elements that are required to win the Super Bowl, right? And the importance of a passing offense, as part of, the main formula of winning football games, right? But then you get into the Super Bowl, you get into like the late part of the playoffs, and it really does seem like it's the running game and the defense that seems to like kind of be the element that has to be the kind of it feels like when you get into the Super Bowl, no matter how many times you've been there before, that there's like, just a level of disruption, because the whole thing is just so different than a regular football.
So weird.
Game. Yeah. You get on the field and, do your normal warm up, and instead of like warming up, going back into the locker room, getting dressed and coming out, and that being like, an hour and a half long process, it's like a 3-hour process in the Super Bowl. And then there's also the halftime that's like, at 45 extra minutes. Everything's just slightly off. And it feels like by the end of the year, everyone's kind of beat up, that it because of all the just like uncertainty and just kind of weird timing stuff, that everything kind of feels disjointed early in the game. And I feel like the only way the teams get out of that is by relying on their run game, right? Like getting the run game going and then having some success that way. And then eventually kind of finding some room to throw the football. You saw San Francisco's defense come out and just was ferocious early in the game, like really really just like, not allowing Kansas City to do anything. I don't think they got a first down until like near the end of the first half, right? Yeah,
it was rough for Kansas City there for a while.
So to me, it feels like watching that game and just kind of, again, reminding yourself that that's the brand of football that has success kind of near the end of the game. We always want to talk about, Brock Purdy or Mahomes, obviously, because that's the big, that's the big highlight that everyone's focusing on, just because everyone's looking at football at a very surface level. But the truth of the matter is that, the ability to stop the run at the end of the game is what won Kansas City that game. They were forcing Purdy to have to throw the ball without having success in the run game. And I think that's ultimately, how they were able to win it. That plus turnover. So keeping that in mind, it looks to me when you compare these teams, that this Cowboys team is built similarly in the way that you would want to win these regular season games, right? Like they have a very good passing game. They have a pass defense that had a lot of success at different points. I think the other aspects is where they really have a long way to go, right? They still are obviously not great at run defense, and they got worse at running the football last year. So I tend to think that, and that's probably part of the reason that Quinn is, Quinn left because he went to go be a head coach, but part of the reason that maybe, some of us didn't want Quinn back is because ultimately it isn't a winning strategy to completely ignore the running game. Like you just can't. Yeah. It makes some sense during the regular season because you have to like invest somewhere, and if you just overinvest in attacking the passing game, you're going to find a lot of success like the Cowboys defense did. But when the rubber meets the road at the end of the season and you need to be able to stop the run, the Cowboys were just unable to do it no matter what they did. And I think that ultimately that commitment to balance in both offense and defense is the biggest difference between the Cowboys and the Chiefs and the 49ers.
And the only other thing that I would say is just like the mental toughness that like Kansas City had. There was a million things that went wrong for Kansas City in this game, whether it was like they have the big pass to McCole Hardman, and then on the very next play, Isaiah Pacheco fumbles. They're down, I think they're down 10-3 at this point. And Mahomes throws the interception on their side of the field. But instead of like
folding and just giving up.
Yeah, I mean, instead of we saw in the Packer game this year, right? Dak threw an interception. Was it a play later? The Packers scored a touchdown. What did the Chiefs do? 3 and out on defense, and they actually forced a punt. So the Mahomes interception didn't hurt them at all. There's a big third down late in the game where if the 49ers get the first down, the game is over. They just kick the field goal and they run out of time. They call up the right slot blitz play and knock the pass down, or they caused the fumble on Christian McCaffrey in the opening drive of the game, despite them moving the ball up and down the field. I just think that part has been missing for the Cowboys for a while because, like, talent-wise, I think they're more talented than Kansas City, and I think they're close to San Francisco talent-wise. They just don't have that resiliency that either of those teams had.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Like, I think that ability to continue to be aggressive and not, I think that's the thing that consistently surprises me, and I think that is a tough ceiling for a lot of these coaches to break through. Is you can't go into a conservative shell in the Super Bowl, right?
No.
You got to be aggressive on. Look, and ultimately, what Spags did was he sent a lot of cover zero and sent a lot of players at Purdy, and I think that sort of fearlessness of defensive calling paid off, and I think that you cannot get to the Super Bowl and then go into a shell. You have to go take the Super Bowl, right? So, and I think that sort of aggressiveness by Spagnuolo and then ultimately Andy Reid, that was the difference in the game. And that I think about, it's such a small play, right? But that slot blitz, I think it was on third down near the red zone in overtime. It was anticlimactic, right? Because you wanted like a big play or something like that, but it was this enormous play, right? The fact that they had to kick a field goal instead of scoring, a touchdown, right? And I think that ultimately is like very indicative of the difference between these teams, right? Is you don't play conservative. We got to get this third down. You go and get it. You go attack them, force them to make a mistake, and that's how you win those kind of games.
And even when things aren't going your way, like in the overtime drive, right? It was 3rd and 13. They sacked Purdy, but they got a defensive holding. I've seen the Cowboys time and time again. Like,
and that was it.
That was it. You think the game is over? Hey, they're going to go down, score a touchdown, and then whatever. They got the stops when they needed to. Like, they were able to bounce back. That's something the Cowboys just haven't been good enough at doing over the last however many years. And I would love to see that change in 2024, hopefully with Rex Ryan fixing it.
My God.
No, with Mike Zimmer, hopefully. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube as well. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.